We are talking Stanley Cup playoffs, Kings versus Oilers with Kings Talk, and all the Kings men host Jesse Cohen on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, the nightly NHL recap show, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into an Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. We are in the heart of the opening round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The LA Kings and Edmonton Oilers going at it for a fourth straight year. We are tied 2-2 on the eve of a huge Game 5. Joining us to discuss what we've seen so far and more is the host of the All the Kings Men podcast and Kings Talk, heard after every LA Kings game. He is Jesse Cohen. Jesse, how are you? And when I say that, I'm not just being polite. I'm sure most everybody knows that you are in the midst of a fight with cancer.
Yep.
I hope you don't mind me asking, how is your treatment going?
It's fine. Thank you for asking. It's weird because I've never experienced most of the things I'm experiencing, so it's hard to judge, but I think for now I'm fine. I've been to both games. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do Kings Talk last night, but I did. But more importantly about the Kings, Eddie, I am more distraught today than I think I've been about a Kings loss. Probably in a year, certainly a year, if not longer. I mean, I don't want to say ever. But last night, was it last night? I've totally lost track of what day it is. Last night's game, the Game 4 loss was tough. It was really hard to watch.
It was. And I completely agree with you. And I'm feeling the same way. And I'm guessing there are a lot of people watching and listening to this that feel the same way as well. When you're 29 seconds away from a 3-1 lead and it doesn't go your way, that's really difficult to swallow. I guess we can all be prisoners of the moment to some extent, but you're right. I can't recall a recent loss that has been more difficult than that because of the opportunity that was there and has now slipped away. We're going to talk obviously about Game 5. It's a 2-2 series and it's a best of 3, and we can tell ourselves that, and it's true. But again, that missed opportunity and being so close to being right on the cusp of what we're trying to do. You're right. It's not easy being a Kings fan after that Game 4 loss.
There's a phrase that I've brought up on Kings Talk a lot recently, and the phrase is, and I'm not sure that younger fans will necessarily know the phrase, but the phrase is nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. And the implication of the phrase, which was understood decades ago when the world was a different place, was that if you're in business and you have to make investments and you invest in a company with a strong, stable reputation like IBM, even if things go south, you won't be punished for it because you made the safe decision. And so you can't be criticized for making a safe decision. And I find what's happening right now in the Kings playoff series, you know, one of the things that I have liked about Jim Hiller, and one of the things that makes Jim Hiller an interesting coach, is that he is praised for being innovative and well, at least originally he was. You know, he'll mix the lines up, he'll go 11-7, he'll, you know, change the power play, he'll do unconventional things. And right now what we're seeing is him being criticized for doing unconventional things. And so, you know, people complain that hockey is full of retreads and players and coaches with no personality, and it's just all very boring and static, and, you know, we don't like it. And then somebody comes along and does something crazy and it doesn't work out. And I'm as guilty of this as anybody. I'm not trying to like play the smartest guy in the room by any stretch of the imagination. Now, you know, guys like you and I are sitting there going, well, why didn't you play it safe? Why didn't you buy IBM? But, you know, they got here by not being that kind of team and not being that kind of coach. So I don't know what you do with it. I really don't know, which I hate saying, but
Well, I think the issue, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about it, I did not listen to Kings talk after game 4. I needed to step away
yeah,
for a
no,
while from the Kings.
I get
And,
it.
and yeah, the third periods in games 3 and 4 is obviously the biggest talking point. And I think for me, my issue is you're playing a certain way and you're having success with it, especially game 4. I thought the first and second periods for the Kings in game 4 were fantastic.
Can I
And
make one pushback before you go
yes,
on?
yes.
Because I agree with you. However, and this was one of the things I was struggling with during King's Talk last night. People have been saying it's the first period. It was the first period and the first half of the second period. Because they fell into that defensive shell that everyone is complaining about for the third period in the second period. So
Okay.
that's my minor but I feel it's important to to identify. So anyway, Sarah, go ahead.
Do you not agree then that the Kings in the latter part of games 3 and 4 changed what they were doing and were
No,
playing
I agree
not to
completely.
win,
I
so to speak?
agree. I agree completely. I just think it happened earlier in game 4 than people are saying. I made some snarky tweet on Twitter today about saying, the Joker said the Gotham needs a better class of villain. Doesn't mean the Joker thinks he's a hero. When I say people need to be more precise in their criticism, I'm not trying to defend anything. I'm just saying if you think the Kings were too passive in the third period, they were also passive at the end of the second period.
Well, is it not as easy as just doing what was working? I know that obviously when a team is down, they're going to be more aggressive, as the Oilers were.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly understand having a more defensive mindset and not necessarily doing anything risky. But it also seems that there's a better way to go about it rather than just kind of sit back at your own blue line, let them gather themselves, not have to work to get it into your zone. And then you're on your heels the whole time and you're just dumping it out. And then you're line changing. And it's just kind of a wash, rinse, repeat type of situation.
Certainly the results would suggest that you are correct. They've lost games 3 and 4 by being too passive. This is the reason I'm bringing up the second period thing, because from my perspective, after Trevor Moore it's Kevin Fiala. Sorry. After Kevin Fiala scored the third goal in game 4, there was a power play for the Kings shortly after that. And then there was an Oilers power play immediately following that. After those power plays were done, the Kings began playing the same way that they did in the third period and most of overtime. And if you're going to give Edmonton half the second period, the entirety of the third period, and 18 minutes of overtime, that's almost a full hockey game. Like that's 50 minutes of hockey to let Edmonton do whatever they want. And all Edmonton had to do to win that game, if you're going to play that way, is score 3 goals. And that's a choice, man. And I don't know. Listen, I'm in a tough spot here, so I can't just come out and say, I think it was the wrong move, but it definitely felt like the wrong move when they lost.
Yeah. And I know that, you can say, well, 29 seconds away from it and everybody being okay with it, but you're letting them get into position to get there with 29 seconds left. And that's as big of a problem as them actually, succeeding and tying it up and sending it into overtime. Right.
Yes. And, this is another area that I think it's important to me for whatever reason to be precise in criticism. I've seen people say, well, he only rolled, him being Jim Hiller, that Jim Hiller only rolled 3 lines in the third period. But he didn't play Kuzmenko for half the third period. They played him the first 3 shifts, I think, of the third period, and then that was it. That's not 3 lines. That's 8 forwards. That's 2 2/3 lines. Like, I understand that he felt that was the right strategy. But if you don't think it's the right strategy, there are more minute and precise ways to criticize that decision.
I feel like the whole, other than, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln, right? Other than the end. But other than the third periods, Anything surprising you or catching your eye about the way the Kings have played in the 2 games in Edmonton?
Edmonton going into the series, I said, listen, I'm more confident about this team than I have been in the previous 3 matchups.
Same.
Edmonton, I'm less confident in them. I mean, this is not like revolutionary stuff. The Kings are outplaying them by a wider margin than I thought they would when they do. Like the first 30 minutes of that game was perfect Kings hockey, which is why it's so difficult to then compare it to the last 50 minutes of the game. Because when it was 3-1 halfway through the second period, the Kings were out shooting the Oilers. They were out hitting the Oilers. They had taken 2 penalties, and both penalties were not as the result of breakdowns in the zone or passive play where they were chasing the puck and it was inevitable, where you're like, come on, Edmonton's been in the zone for 5 minutes. Eventually they're going to score or you're going to take a penalty. It was just like Kempe made a bad play. Doughty made a bad play. They took penalties. It's going to happen. Refs are going to call it. So they were playing smart as far as staying out of the box. They were playing aggressive, physical, direct hockey, and Edmonton didn't have an answer for it. And you've seen the post-game comments from Edmonton. And that's, I think, what is so galling to Kings fans is that Edmonton is saying the Edmonton players and coaches are saying the same thing that Kings fans are saying. And so when you say, I don't understand why this is happening, and then the people that you desperately want to beat are saying, oh man, isn't it great that this is happening? That's hard, I think, to wrap your head around.
Well, we actually have some good news to share that might cheer Kings fans up a little bit. And obviously, we're going to get into Game 5, as again, it's now a best of 3. We'll do that and more up next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. There is nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute NHL showdown or soaking up the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. Gametime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer, and their all-in pricing lets you see the total cost up front. There are no surprises at checkout. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events. And with the seat view before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guaranteed, you can book with total confidence. Their lowest price guarantee means I never worry about overpaying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We are continuing with the host of Kings Talk, heard after every Kings game. He is Jesse Cohen. Looking at some of the individuals for the Kings so far through 4 games, I know I've gotten some texts from people who maybe don't normally watch the Kings, and now that the playoffs are going on, they're watching more about how great Adrian Kempe is. And I'm like, yeah, he is. He's been that way for a while. But I don't know that I really am looking at any Kings player and saying that guy hasn't showed up. This guy needs to play a lot better. I think there's a lot of things to like about how the Kings have played. Kevin Fiala has looked dangerous. Philip Deneau has really stepped up his game. Is there anyone that you can say, I know maybe Quentin Byfield in the last couple of games has been a bit quiet, but is there anyone that you can point to and say that guy needs to be better? Or are you feeling,
no,
hate to use the word satisfied, but how well the Kings are playing?
No. And, you know, when you say, well, the team could have been up 3-1 or frankly could have had a sweep, I think you have to admit that the team is playing well. You know, and that's, Adrian Kempe is incredible. Kevin Fiala has scored some big goals in this series. Quentin Byfield has scored some really nice goals in this series. Drew Doughty has a goal. You know what I mean? Like Kempe and Kopitar had 4-point nights. What was it in game 2, I think? You know, Darcy Kuemper has been incredible. He was incredible last night. I don't think any players are doing anything. You know, I'm perfectly happy with the way the players are playing when they're playing Kings hockey. Can I say it that way?
Yes, you could say
All
it
right.
that way. One issue that has been brought up, you alluded to it. Jim Hiller basically going with 9 or 8 forwards, 5 defensemen, how that can affect the Kings later in a game, as it possibly did in the overtime game, or deeper in a series. If it goes, we know it's going 6 at least, could go 7. Any thoughts on how he's kind of utilizing a small group of players so far?
So listen, I'm just going to be perfectly frank about this. This puts me in a tough spot because if I speak my mind and my mind happens to agree with what Jim Hiller says, I'm accused of being a shill and backing the org. And if I don't, well, then I'm openly criticizing my employer. So let me put it this way. And I say this because I believe it. I didn't agree with the decision to go with 11-7 in game 2. And I didn't understand why Jacob Muvraari only played 2 minutes and 36 seconds or whatever it was. And he really didn't play at all because he only played those minutes when the game was already 6-2 and it was over. But that game ended 6-2. So that decision was clearly not the deciding factor in game 2. But game 4, they lost. And I find myself with the same question of why didn't Jacob Muvraari play? Now it's different because it was 11-7 and game 4 was 12-6 arguably. But in game 4, the Kings did the same thing they've done the whole series, which is rely on the veterans and not play the bottom of the lineup. Now, let me ask you something, Eddie. Do you have an explanation for why they're so much better at home than they're on the road? Because I don't, and I've not heard anybody offer up a really compelling argument for why.
Well, I mean, we did see a bit of what we saw in games 3 and 4 in game 1. I know Connor McDavid went crazy, and did that. But in game 2, it seemed like the Kings played the full 3 periods the way they played
I mean the
periods,
whole regular season. Like they were incredible at home and why? Why were they so good at home and so on the road?
I heard Jim Fox say this, so I will share what he shared because it made a lot of sense. Because of the style and the energy that the Kings expend playing the way they play without the puck, that extra energy on home ice allows them to play that a little bit better, longer for a full 3 periods. And maybe that's the explanation for it. I also think there has to be a mental aspect of just confidence. They feel like because they've had so much success at home, that something good is going to happen, or it's just going to turn out their way when they play on home ice. And it's, when you think something good is going to happen because it's happened in this situation before, sometimes that seems to tend to happen. Right. So I don't have a good explanation, but that's the explanation.
But that's fine. So then let's say for the sake of argument that is the explanation. If that's the case, then what we're looking at is a series that's 4 games. One of them has been a blowout win for the Kings, and 3 of them have been close. 1 went the Kings' way, 2 went the Oilers' way. But it's essentially a tie series with 1 game that should tilt the game in the Kings' favor. There's 3 games left. 2 of them are on Kings' home ice. If that explanation is true, that bodes really well for the Kings. I understand that sounds like I'm shilling for the team, but like, I don't know why they were so good. I mean, they were the best team at home in the league.
Yeah.
And in game 2, Edmonton did not factor into that game.
Yeah.
Games 3 and games 4, the Kings were in a position to win. It didn't go their way, but they were in a position to win. And game 1, they did win. So, this is a weird metric that I apply to series. But if you go back to 2012 and the New Jersey Devils series, and I would hear Devils fans say, well, 2 of the games went to overtime and it was closer than you think. And, what do you blah, blah. And I said, okay, fine. 2 of the games went to overtime, but one of the game was a 6-1 victory. One of the games was a 3-0 victory, I think, if memory serves. And I don't remember the score. And the other 2 games that New Jersey won were like 1-goal games. Maybe one had an empty netter. So I was like, yeah, okay. 2 of the games or 4 of the games were pushes, were close. But the games that weren't close were heavily in the Kings' favor. So as far as I'm concerned, the Kings won the series. This series, what we're looking at is 3 games that were close. and one game that the Kings dominated. So if you want to ask who has been the more dominant team, who has been the better team, it's the Kings. And
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, and with 3 games left and 2 of them on home ice, and the advantage, I think, clearly in the Kings' favor to be playing on home ice, I think that enough is a reason to maybe justify some of the decisions and say, well, listen, nothing much changed between game 2 and game 4, except the outcome. But game 2 was a blowout victory and game 4 was a slow collapse. So, okay. What's the difference? Home ice, I guess. I don't know. Sorry, man. I don't have a lot today. I'm distraught. I'm struggling.
You're not alone. There was one thing that actually made me feel good. And that was the news that Darcy Kuemper has been named as a finalist for the Vezina Trophy. I had heard a lot of media talk throughout the year about, we know Connor Hellebuck, Andre Vasilevsky. I heard Jake Ottinger's name mentioned. I was like, okay. But I did not hear Darcy Kuemper's name mentioned much at all. And it was very bothersome that he wasn't getting recognized. And I know a whole West Coast thing and the games are late and all that kind of stuff. But I talked with Jim Fox and I told him how it was bothering me that I felt like Darcy was maybe going to get snubbed as being a finalist. And he said, don't forget, this is voted on by the GMs. And I think they probably know more than the average media person, perhaps, if they were voting on it. So anyway, Darcy Kuemper has been recognized. You were right. He was phenomenal. The person I probably felt the worst for after game 4 was Darcy Kuemper.
Yeah.
Those overtime saves he had to keep him in it were just phenomenal. I'm really happy for Darcy. I really am. Not only coming back from losing his starting job with another team, but getting a second chance on a good team and running with it. And I'm really happy that he was recognized for the fine season that he's had.
And he seems like a very nice man, which it's rare that you come across a hockey player who doesn't seem like, most people seem like nice people, but he seems to always be in a genuinely good mood. And that is the difference, right? There are guys who are good at being pleasant. And then there are guys who seem genuinely, happy to speak to the media and excited to be in the league and playing the game. And, you see the game that he played last night, Corey Perry sitting on his head a few times and he lost his mask a couple of times and just obviously was trying to do everything he could to come up with that win. What did he have? 40 something stops. Just an incredible night, an incredible season. I was talking to a lot of people today about a lot of different things. And I just said, listen, the most optimistic guess for what this season from Darcy Kuemper would look like, if you went back to, August of last summer, you could say, listen, Darcy Kuemper's a good goalie. He's going to come here. He's going to fix his career. He's going to have a bounce back. He'll be fine. It'll be okay. He's a Stanley Cup winner. Like, you could say all the things you wanted to say about how it was a good move to bring him in, but Vezina finalist? No, I wouldn't have predicted that. No. And he's had an outstanding season. He's had a great season.
All right, we'll get some final thoughts on Game 5 with Jesse Cohen. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. NBA playoffs are going on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, you can join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, and you will get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite teams or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways for you to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the tip-off, you can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. LA has 2 teams currently still alive in the NBA playoffs. Lakers are down 3-1 to the Timberwolves, facing a must-win in Game 5 on Wednesday. Clippers taking on the Nuggets. They're tied at 2-2 with Game 5 coming up on Tuesday. Make those games more exciting and fun by using FanDuel to wager on all the NBA playoff excitement. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Wrapping it up with the host of the All the Kings Men podcast. He is Jesse Cohen. Jesse, Game 5 at Crypto.com Arena. The Kings have obviously, as we've talked about, been phenomenal all year on home ice. Optimistic about going into Game 5. I know I said, even in my disappointment after Game 4, I still really didn't have any problem saying I still think the Kings win the series. As I said going into it, if they just win their home games, they move on. And I know that might sound very simplistic, but the way they've played at home gives me confidence that, if necessary, can be the case.
So this won't necessarily be about the team, but it is about home ice. I was so impressed with the performance of the crowd in games 1 and 2.
Agreed.
Really outstanding playoff level performance by Kings fans at Crypto.com Arena in games 1 and 2. And I have no doubt that it'll be the same. It'll probably, honestly, all of this disappointment and shell shock and whatever, I expect game 5 to be bonkers because, game 1, there was a little bit of like, oh, what day is it going to be? Is it going to be Sunday or Monday? And we don't really know. And then it was scheduled. And then Tuesday, you have the kind of, trepidation because of the way game 1 ended. But, then it went, then it's 6-2. And listen, let's be honest. It's harder to be loud in a blowout than it is a close game because you settle in and your team has the lead. And like, I don't know, there's just less explosive moments, right? The end of game 1 was incredible. So game 5, I expect another stunning performance from the crowd, and I expect that it will spur the team on to another win. And it's hard to say this with my full chest after watching game 3 and 4, but I mean, the Kings should still win this series. I still believe they're the better team. And I'm of the opinion that the theory of this series, the thesis of this series is that it's more important to have a better team than it is the best player, because I don't think anybody would argue that any series Edmonton is in, if Connor McDavid is playing and if Leon Draisaitl is playing, they have the best 2 players. That's how it is. But, they still haven't won the Stanley Cup, which is no knock on them. It's just a question of what's more important, having the better team or having the best 2 players. And the Kings have the better team.
Is there anything in particular about game 5? I know the Kings have obviously had the lead in both games on home ice. The power play has been ridiculously good on home ice. Is it just a continuation of what we've seen in the first 2 games? Is there anything kind of in particular you're hoping to see in this game 5?
I mean, I think I'm probably going to say what everybody will say, which is I want to see them play the way they played the first 30 minutes of game 4 and then never stop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's because, I mean, honestly, like no notes through the first 30 minutes of game 4. The only goal they got scored against them was Corey Perry on an incredible individual effort. Like, listen, I understand we all hate Corey Perry. He's a duck and a bum and blah. But like, come on. This guy won an MVP award. He won the Richard Trophy. Like, he's good. And that goal he scored, I mean, come on. Like, so yeah, they outplayed him. They outhit him. They dominated. Edmonton didn't appear to have any answers through the first 30 minutes. So more of that, please. I'll take that all day long.
As will I. Jesse, it was great to see you out at Crypto.com Arena. I know you're being Santa Claus and helping people. I met so many people that are like, oh, Jesse gave me tickets to come to the game. I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know there were a couple of people who wanted me to thank you for them.
It's my pleasure.
For getting them those tickets. So, but good to see you out there. Hope to see you out there again. And hope that we all feel a lot better after game number 5. Thanks for doing this and best of luck in everything going on with you, obviously.
Yeah. And listen, let's hope whoever you talk to on Wednesday is in a much better mood than we are today.
I hope so as well. Jesse, thank you so much. And we'll see you out there for game 5. Take care. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. We appreciate Jesse Cohen joining us. And again, hopefully we all feel better after game 5. For you every day, here's those of you that listen to watch Locked On LA Kings every day. Coming up on our next show, we'll react and break down Kings-Oilers game number 5. If you would like to contact this show for any reason, we have an email address. It's lockedoneddie@gmail.com. If you want to leave comments, if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section, that's always welcome. And if you want to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok, we're at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you on our next show. And as always, go Kings, go.